and in that article are some very disturbing graphs. I'll leave it up to you to decide whether these graphs show that the bulk of society is immiserated, but I think you all agree that the picture is fairly grim. So here we see social mobility versus inequality. I think this is striking because we like to think of ourselves in the United States as having a socially mobile society. That's the mythology. You know, if you may be born poor or working class, but through your own efforts you can work your way up to be anything you want. But in fact, that is flatly false. If we compare ourselves to some of the other developed countries, such as Canada and the countries of Europe, we see that in fact you'd have a great deal more social mobility in Sweden or Denmark or Finland or Canada or Germany, and here in the United States is way at the bottom. And interestingly, also near the bottom is United Kingdom, which shares much of, not quite so drastically, but shares many economic characteristics with the United States and has both high inequality and poor social mobility. Now, if you think about it, that's what you'd expect, because if there is a lot of social equality and everyone has good opportunity to have good schools and adequate food and care and health care and so on, then all children kind of have an equal opportunity. Equality of opportunity and actual equality go together a lot. And so in a more equal society, you actually have more social mobility, and in an unequal society such as ours, you have less. This is part of a historical trend. The mythology of American social mobility does have its roots in some truth, and indeed social mobility was increasing up until around 1980. What this chart shows is the percentage of a son's income that is determined by his father's income. Now, the reason I suspect that this is not gender neutral as looking at sons and fathers is because the data go back to the 50s when, of course, women had a much smaller part in the workforce. In any case, when this number is low, that indicates social mobility, indicates that it's not your father's or your parents' income that is contributing to your success, but your own efforts and so on. And when this number is high, it means that the advantages provided by having a father with higher income have a greater influence. And as you can see, this number went down steadily until about 1980, and then sharply risen since then. So that now over about a third of your success is determined really by the advantages provided by your parents' income. That's no accident because, as many of you know, it was precisely in 1980 with the election of Ronald Reagan that much of the trend in our economy toward privatization, or privateering as I call it, and devaluation of the public sector began to occur in earnest. Some more quick charts. Health, right? We've been talking a lot about health care lately. As you go up in this chart, health gets worse. And as you go to the right in this chart, inequality gets high. And as you can see, here we are way up there with the highest inequality, and off the charts, bad health. With the greatest level of equality would be Japan, where they also actually have off the charts best level of health. So maybe part of the lesson is to eat more sushi, but that's not the only lesson. Crime, inequality, and crime, as you'd expect in a more unequal society. People are more desperate and so on, and frustrated, and having ill health. Crime might go up, and indeed it does. And you can see here we are way up at the top of the chart, with off the charts way above the trend line crime. So it's not entirely explained by inequality, and also the highest level of inequality. And by the way, the level of homicides is being measured here, so we're talking about violent crime. And it's not, by the way, explained entirely by the availability of guns in the United States, because some of these other countries with much lower crime, Switzerland, for example, or Canada, guns are pretty readily available in those places as well. Inequality correlates with mental illness. The more inequality, the greater the level of mental illness. You can see it pretty steadily follows that trend line, with a few places that do better than the trend, such as Italy. I guess it's nice and sunny and people have good food and they're happy. But in any case, mental illness increases with inequality, and here we are with the by far the highest percentage of mentally ill individuals in our society, and the highest inequality correlated with it. And as many of you know, we pay a lot for our lousy health. So if you look at other countries, they are all over at the left side of the chart, spending considerably less. Japan spending about between $2,000 and $3,000 per capita on health care. Singapore spending a very small amount, barely more than $1,000 per person. USA way off the chart here, spending almost $6,000 per capita, and nonetheless, life expectancy in the United States is lower than all these other places except for Ireland, Denmark, and Portugal. So that kind of gives you a grim picture of the state of affairs that we have brought ourselves to, which I think is the larger context for understanding this crisis. The second question was, what do I expect to happen, basically, with the impact and the future if the budget crisis is not resolved? Well, I bring you back to this chart, and what I would see is this trend clearly continuing. If we do not provide better revenue in the state of Illinois, higher education funding will continue to be cut and made up by tuition, making institutions like Eastern Illinois University less and less accessible and affordable to the population of students in Illinois. And the final question was, what do I think should be done about it? Well, I think we need to face the fact that in order to have a healthy society in which we have thriving business and industry and prosperity, we need a robust public sector in particular areas, especially public education. And in order to do that, we need an equitable and reliable stream of revenue to pay for it. Institutions like EIU provide excellent quality for the price, for the cost, excellent value. And in order to provide revenue for these important functions, we need to develop a progressive income tax structure in Illinois. I agree with the other people who have been asked to speak who have voiced support for that. We need to recognize that, beyond the income required for the things we most need and value, there's discretionary income, and though we'll never have enough revenue to have a thriving society unless those who have more discretionary income pay a higher percentage of taxes. So I think we just need to mobilize and act to move in that direction if we're ever going to solve this problem on a longer term or permanent basis.